and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we are going to revisit one of Hampton's top breweries. We have so many wonderful breweries because they're doing great new things. My guests today are from Oozlefinch, the head brewer, Mike Donovan, and the assistant brewer and chemist, Rachel Edwards. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You guys are kind of new faces. I know it's a young brewery anyway, but you're fairly new to the brewery.
Correct, yes.
Mike, where did you come from? When did you join?
So I started last April, and I came from a brewery in Washington, D.C. called 3 Stars. That's where I cut my teeth as a brewer and learned about barrel-aged sours and just brewing in general.
And I think, let's just stop for a second and talk about the barrel-aged sours, because that has, not that you have a wide array of products, a lot more than the last time you guys were here in the studio.
Yes.
But that's really become an important niche for Oozlefinch.
Yes, definitely. When Russell hired me, it was in part to flip the taproom list so that we were going off of a one-off model instead of having the same beers all of the time. But the other big push was to start a barrel-aged sour program, which was something he really wanted to do, very close to my heart as well. Those are my favorite beers to make. And so we came in and started the sour program and were able to get some barrels relatively quickly. And that is definitely a big push for us.
So Beer Education 101, for those people out there who don't know a lot of beer, and for me right here who doesn't know a lot about it, what is it about the sours? How are they different? How is it different making them? And what is the taste compared to, what people might think of as more standard grocery store beer? I know It's not comparable, but.
Well, it's a great question. There's a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about sour beer. There's a wide range when people say sour beer. It's sort of an umbrella category.
Yes.
And really the thing that makes beer sour, the way that most breweries do it, is we're using bacteria that creates lactic acid. Some of that bacteria is the same stuff that's in your yogurt. Lactic acid's a really approachable acid on your palate. It's something that most of us are familiar with, that we've tasted. If you have anything that has gone sour that's dairy, that's lactic acid, so we all know what it tastes like. So we're relying on different strains of bacteria to create acidity in the beer, which helps create more of a refreshing, sour beers are great in the summer. They're tart, they're refreshing, they're generally more crisp. The thing that we're doing with our barrel-aged sours is actually a mixed fermentation. So we're using what I would call normal brewer's yeast, which is the same thing that you have in your IPAs, your Saisons. That's all different strains of different species, I should say, of the same genus of brewer's yeast. We use that. We also use a wild yeast called Brettanomyces, and we're using different strains of bacteria. So the thing that makes sour beer different is it's just more complex. There's more microorganisms interacting with each other, creating compounds. One microorganism might create a compound as a byproduct that another one wants to eat and is going to turn into something else. So we like these beers because they're deep, they're complex. Barrel aging is traditional, so then you're also getting flavors from the wood, spirits or wine that was in the wood. So when we talk about our sour beer program, it's a wide range of things, but this is really our premier product, I would say, is the barrel-aged sour.
And speaking of that as being a premier product, that is what recently won a gold in the statewide competition, right?
Yes, that's correct. That actually was our first barrel-aged sour that we put out from the new program. It was Dr. Rendezvous, and it was an Imperial Saison that was aged and mixed fermented in Chardonnay barrels from right here in Virginia.
Ooh, Chardonnay barrels.
Yeah.
That is this interesting mix too then, where Virginia as a big winery state now, and the craft breweries have some overlap.
Yes, and the beverage industry is really collaborative, more so than any other that I know of. We're all competing with each other in a friendly way and pushing each other to do better, but it's also very easy to call another brewer and ask a question. I've given advice, I've received advice just in the short time that I've been here. It's a really friendly atmosphere, and we're able to collaborate with wineries. We're constantly talking to Sly Clyde here in Hampton. They use the same kind of bottle that we do.
I recognize it.
Yeah, so we reached out to Brent over there to talk about a a sour apple beer that we were doing because he's obviously the expert on apples.
Ooh, that sounds good.
And yeah, and meaderies. We have several barrels from Ironclad over in Newport News, so it's really a fun industry to be a part of, and adding those different ingredients or using those different barrels just pushes our product as far as depth and complexity.
That's so interesting. Well, Rachel, how did you get into beer making? Because this is, I will also say, probably a male-dominated industry in a lot of ways. What's your background?
So I studied chemistry at Christopher Newport University. I graduated a year ago. And I went through a couple different career options. I tried a bunch of different things and nothing really stuck. But my dad, he actually works in the beer distribution in Northern Virginia. So he got me an internship at a brewery up in Northern Virginia. And I was developing their QA program. They were a new brewery, just like Oozlefinch is. So I helped them develop some SOPs and their quality assurance program. And I fell in love with it. So when I came back to school for my senior year, I called Oozlefinch, and they were brand new. And I offered to do the same thing for them. And they took it. So I interned with them for a year while I was in school. And then when I graduated, they brought me on full time.
And that's great. And now, your parents aren't like, oh, what you're wasting your chemistry degree since your dad's in the distribution business anyway. Yeah. It's seen as a career, which some parents may not see it as.
Exactly.
Well, you had an interesting venture this year, and it's one of the things we wanted to talk about in terms of Oozlefinch has always had very deep roots and connections with Fort Monroe, where it's based. And the name Oozlefinch comes from an old legend at the fort. Tell us about your new wild yeast culture and how that came about.
Yeah. So like you said, we really try to connect our brewery to the history of the fort. A lot of our beers' names are named after tall tales from the fort or
ghosts or
the
moat monster.
Yeah. So we wanted to take it one step further and do something really innovative and creative and unique to the brewery. So we paired up with the Casemate Museum, and they let us come in and swab all over General Butler's chest, his dining chest, which was very nice of them. And we basically made sugar water, which is what we make beer with. Mm-hmm. And we soaked all of these swabs in the sugar water and let all of the yeast grow, and we got some bad things. We got mold, but we also got a yeast strain out of it. So people do it all the time. People will
see. I have not heard of this so much. This is just fascinating to me.
Cultivating wild yeast is something that's definitely been done before. It's all over the place, so it's not hard to do. I think the hardest part of it was propping it up to be able to ferment out an 8-barrel batch of beer. And get good flavors out of it, and people seem to be receiving it well. I think people love the story behind it, and they're liking the taste of it as well. So,
and General Butler being a very well-known pivotal moment in Hampton's history and Fort Monroe's history and the history of the United States, in terms of not running it up the chain of command and making that contraband decision that said, escaped slaves, I'm not going to return them because they're fighting against us. He had to call the property of war to be able to do that. But it began a huge change in the South, where thousands of enslaved people escaped to first Fort Monroe and then all of Hampton, which became the contraband town. And there are 4 churches in town that still date back to that era, and the people that's resettled in Hampton after that. So very cool connection. What is that beer called?
It is called Spoon Smuggler.
Yes.
Because
there are several tall tales about General Butler as well, one of which is that as he traveled on campaign and would visit other high-ranking officials, that he always would walk away with some silverware.
What a great story.
Apparently he was a bit of a spoon smuggler, so considering the fact that we swabbed yeast off of where he kept his spoons, it only seemed right.
That is perfect. That is perfect. Well, tell us, you guys are bottling and canning now.
Correct. Yes.
That's brand new, right? Or pretty new, a few months old.
Yes, you're actually looking at our first canning run here. We did 2 different beers. The pink label here is basically a play off of our Lady in White Hefeweizen, which won the silver medal at the Virginia Craft Brewers Cup last year. So we really love that German wheat ale, and we've been playing off of it for the past year, adding different fruit to it. And this batch has strawberry added to it. So Hefeweizens typically have a banana and clove character to it, so we thought strawberry and banana would be a pretty nice combination.
Awesome.
So,
I have not tried it yet. I'm really looking forward to
yes,
it.
yes. So that is a perfect beer for summer if you like wheat beer, if you like light fruity beers. The green label.
That's me, light and fruity.
Yeah.
But I really also like the sours and some of the other, I've really actually learned a lot from hanging out there. And it does rotate so much. Like I can fall in love with something and then go a week later and it's not there anymore. So this will help because when I find a favorite beer, I will be able to keep it for longer than a growler would last.
Yes, yeah, the cans are definitely a good option for us in terms of extending our shelf life rather than giving you a crowler that we fill on site. Having the cans professionally packaged, and we're able to measure several metrics that give us some information about the stability of the product in the can. So when we put that can out, we know we are telling you, hey, this is good.
Okay, well, I'm going to pop one just so we can show it on camera. Tell us what I'm going to try to pop one. I might need help. So tell us what this one is. Twangy Banjo.
Yes. Twangy Banjo is a session IPA. So it's got all the hoppiness that we expect out of an IPA. A lot of hop aroma, a lot of hop flavor. It's not quite as bitter, and it doesn't have the high alcohol content that you would normally see in an IPA these days. A lot of the IPAs on the market are pushing 7% or more alcohol.
And that's a lot for summer because you're drinking more because you're hot and you want something maybe a little lighter.
Yes, and then ironically, of course, alcohol dehydrates you. So drinking beer in the sun is a great American pastime, but it's not always the best at the beach in Fort Monroe.
Absolutely.
So that's a very manageable alcohol, less than 5%, and the hops and the malt are scaled accordingly. So that's going to be a great beer for hop lovers who want to be able to drink over a session, right? It's called a session IPA because it should be sessionable. You should be able to have a couple over a drinking session without feeling bad.
Right. That's interesting. Okay, so what else do we have in the shady character? Oh, this is the barrel-aged dark sour.
Yes, so that's our most recent release. We just bottled that last week.
Yeah, I was going to say I haven't tried this one yet.
Yeah.
And Deep Meditation. Oh, I had this one.
Yes.
The cherry sour Saison.
Yes, so Deep Meditation is our Imperial Saison base that we like to put in the barrels for souring. So it's a similar base to Dr. Rendezvous, but we added sweet cherry to that.
So tell me what a Saison is. What does that mean?
A Saison is a traditional Belgian-style ale. It was traditionally given to farmhands, actually. And it's brewed in the summer because that yeast likes warmer temperatures. And it tends to be kind of fruity and spicy, more of a peppery spice than the clove that you get out of the German Hefeweizen. But it also tends to be very dry. So it's a very refreshing beer in the summer. Pale, crisp, dry, but still fruity and peppery. People who like Belgian beers, there's a kind of the Trappist that's more high alcohol, typically fruitier. But Saisons, people who like Belgian beer, Saison is their go-to beer generally.
It's interesting because, I like the Hefeweizens and I like the Saisons and some of the sours, but I didn't think I was a beer drinker. I went to one place and they didn't serve wine, and so he said, well, let me bring you something that wine drinkers like. And so I'm learning to expand my palate a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is your salted caramel apple gose. What is gose? What is that?
Gose is also a German style.
I'm not even saying it right.
It's from the city of Leipzig, and it's a sour beer that also they add salt to it. So it adds an even more refreshing component. It's really
I did sort of
quenching.
get that margarita thing where you've got the,
Yes, exactly.
the little bit of salt there.
Exactly.
It's interesting, and I just did not know there were this many varieties. I mean, it's been fun, and you guys release your new ones on, is it Thursday nights?
We release to the
Typically?
public on Friday.
Friday, oh, okay.
But if you join our mug club, then you get early access on Thursday.
Okay, that's new too. Tell me about the Mug Club.
So the Mug Club actually has been around for a little while. I believe we're actually sold out right now. But a couple of the perks of the Mug Club are, of course, you get early access to releases, so you
Okay.
get to try it before anyone else. And then you literally are given a mug, and all the mugs were custom made here locally, and they're all actually a different size. So when we pour beer in the mug, you get a discounted price, and you're just paying per ounce. So you basically get a bigger pour at a more generous price point for you.
Oh man, what a great idea.
Yeah.
And you guys are on your expanded summer hours now, so you're open
We are open 7 days a week.
day. I know,
Yes.
that was huge.
Yeah.
And start earlier too.
11
Yes,
a.m.
we're open at 11 a.m.
a.m. Well, I'm going to close in, and you're going to pop that lady in pink for me if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
All right.
And thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've certainly enjoyed this. Having all these wonderful breweries in town gives us the ability to learn and try and taste so many different things and to go back and revisit because there's always something new. See you at Oozlefinch.